Welcome to the second episode in this series where Sam and I review some of his code and just generally discuss the journey of becoming a software developer. Sam has already signed off the first exercise, the weather app, and so today we're discussing the second exercise that we prepared for him, which was actually his own idea. He felt like it would be useful to have an app where you could click generate and randomly generate a coaching question. So sort of a thing that he as a life coach would have found useful himself. So we get into discussing this exercise. He's already managed to complete it, so we're doing a bit of a review on that exercise, talk about some of the issues he's been running into. He actually, we get into quite a bit into problems on sharing via Twitter button that is being introduced and how it's being introduced and why it doesn't behave exactly like he wanted. We talk a little bit about computing history. We talk a little bit about kind of just paradigm shifts and how to approach challenges and problems that seem a little bit too difficult at first. And naturally, there's a little bit of just standard programming jargon and chitty-chatting about Git, about React, about debugging, etc., etc. At the end of the conversation, we also look at the kind of future steps that Sam could be taking. And there we look into something called JavaScript 30 and Edabit, which are two platforms that we are considering for Sam to pick up and start doing exercises on to kind of grind down on his core JavaScript knowledge. I was a little bit embarrassed in the last recording about the quality of my audio due to the fact that I've been recording it with these shitty headset microphone. So this time I made sure that I've been recording it using my proper microphone that I'm using for my video recording. However, a small problem crawled in and the recording using that mic stopped sometime during the recording, and I managed to recover some of it due to the fact that we've been recording part of the call through Zoom. However, that again came through using this mic, so part of the recording is going to be a little bit shit yet again. And furthermore, there is actually just a chunk of the recording where you can only hear Sam speaking. So I once again wanted to apologize for the quality of audio and these problems. I can promise to you that the next episode is going to be free of these kind of issues. So anyway, without further ado, this is going to be me and Sam again talking about his second exercise and just doing general programming review. Hope you enjoy it.
Check. Mic check, 1, 2.
Hello.
Yo.
Can you hear me?
Yo. Yes, mate. Yeah, I've just made you host on the meeting.
You did. I like that you're getting a shelf behind you, the bookshelf. I read an article somewhere, people saying that the bookshelves are becoming like the background of the 2020s, because all of the interviews that are happening right now due to the the virus are all held with the bookshelf being in the back, and it's kind of like a statement, of a status of some sort.
Yeah, so look how intelligent I am.
Yeah, look at there's a good,
These are all just photo albums, though. They're not even books.
Oh, you're right. I'm like, oh, there's a guitar in the corner. That's nice. All right. Are you artistic as well?
Yeah, it's like, do you remember when like DVDs were a thing and people would buy DVDs and put them on display just to say, this is the kind of person I am? It's like a visual representation.
Absolutely, yeah. I own maybe about 10 books, and seven of them are from the same saga. The other 3 are like technical books on 3D computer graphics back in the days when I didn't have a Kindle. Yeah. Since then, Kindle, like I have about 100 books on my Kindle, but physical form, not anymore.
Yeah. Same here.
So how's it going, Sam? Happy birthday once again.
Happy birthday! Thank you very much.
Marina's screaming happy birthday as well.
Yeah, I can hear it this time.
Right.
Thank you, Marina. Yeah, good. Thanks, mate. It was good. Good. Well, I had a couple of days off this week, so it was good to just refresh, re-energize, and just made some good progress on project number 2. So feeling good actually.
Yeah, decent. Yeah, I've been following the progress. I'm happy actually you tackled the optional exercise, rather the optional part of the exercise. Kind of straight away. It seemed like you went through the main part of the exercise, the non-optional part, relatively quickly within like a couple of days, haven't you?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, it's I guess an intermediate programmer, it's quite a basic app, and I can see that now because I'm on the other side of it. But it took me a while to do the main part of it, which was actually no, the hardest bit was getting the random. I could get it to repeat. How to explain it? Yeah, I could get it to generate the questions randomly, but I struggled to get it so it didn't repeat all the time. But once I got that functionality down, the process of me trying to work that out meant that I learned so much stuff that the rest of the things to do on there, I now had the experience on how to. I think it's basically having a grasp of object-oriented programming. That definitely helps because you think of things through the lens of objects, essentially.
Yeah,
in terms
yeah.
of how can I put this in how can I store it? How can I do things with it? How can I write a function that mutates this? So by doing the main functionality of that app is giving me the experience and the ability to do quite a few other things now. So it's been really cool to not just do the optional extras that you put, but as I'm making the app, I'm thinking, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we could do this? And then I can actually do it now. So yeah, it's been super cool. Just learned so much from doing it. Even because I think it took me probably about 4 or 5 days, if not a week, to figure out that non-repeat functionality.
Yeah,
and I didn't, I wasn't successful on any of those days until right at the end. But I learned so much in those other days by trying different avenues, looking at different things, just coding, just trying and iterating, which is where I really struggled in the last project, where I kind of was firstly too scared to try in case I broke something, or if I tried and it didn't work, I knew I'd get pissed off. Whereas I've completely changed mindset now into, all right, well, let's try this. If it doesn't work, at least I can figure out why it doesn't work. And then I can move on to an iteration, which I didn't have that ability at the beginning of project one. So
I mean,
feel a lot
well done.
Confident.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's an essential skill, and kind of we spoke about it before that there'll be a day when this becomes more natural to you. So I believe like to some extent you're already feeling this. That it's just a matter of like reiterating some of the things they already know and using the knowledge and experience that you have without feeling like diminished by the task at hand that at the time seems overwhelming, right? And when you start breaking it down into smaller steps, like you use all these little techniques that we spoke about before for like simplifying, difficult things, and just like you say, give it a go. Like, you work out one way. If it doesn't work, you work another way, and one way or another, someday something will work. And especially at the time when you're learning something as simple as that, right? It's pretty cool because you can like sort of go off very different tangents, and even if you exhaust all of your options, you still can like ask somebody else for advice, and they will probably still point you in the right direction. But that whole process of like exhausting all the options that you have is an excellent exercise for like the future when maybe you'll be working on something that nobody else figured out yet. Like you could end up, writing websites, today, but you may end up in some form of like, sort of cutting edge technology a few years from now when it comes to coding, in which case you'll have no one to ask, but you'll have the capacity of like, okay, well, what are my options and what have I not looked at yet, right? And I think we're kind of touching on just general idea of research, like, for centuries, this is how people kind of been exploring new paths and just asking themselves questions and trying to like, go kind of broader and open their kind of their disciplines to be able to understand like the context and be able to like approach the problems from different perspectives, right? So at a very small level, this is what you're doing right now. You're taking those relatively simple tasks that you just aren't familiar with, right? And apply that same logic to it. Like you try to explore those different avenues, which is excellent and perfect. And the fact that you're feeling more confident and like sort of just kind of accustomed to it is great news, because it shouldn't feel stressful. It should feel like, okay, well, that's just the way I work. That's my normal problem solving method.
Yes, it's definitely been a mindset shift. Yeah, and I think the video that you pointed me to must have been last week sometime. Is it 3 brown, 1 blue?
Yes,
something like that. And it was just talking about like a super complex math problem, but how to overcome it. And just the phrase that he used was something like, if the problem needs to be solved in like 3D, see if you can at least solve it in 2D first and then 1D. So that really helped me just break down the challenge into all right, well, let me see if I can get part of it working and then build up from there, rather than trying to do it in 3D straight off the bat. So
absolutely.
That context really helped.
Yeah, it was the hardest question on the hardest test, wasn't it?
Yeah,
right. About this I don't know what test exactly it was, but like he was discussing this very difficult question there, and it's interesting to see how you can approach problems by just looking at them from different perspectives. There's another really cool story that I like in the same kind of domain of like looking at problems in a different way, and that kind of opened my eyes to quite a lot of things as well. And it's cool because it's related to programming as well. In fact, to history of programming. So when they've been trying to figure out like early computers back in the, I think 1920s, 30s, early 40s, like the first electromechanical computer. I'm trying to remember correctly, but I think it's 1940. Sorry, no, first fully electronical computer was 1945, I think, and that was the EMAC. If you obviously just started your programming journey, you wouldn't know that. But actually, history of computing is super fascinating, how they got together figuring it out. All started with like the calculating machine of Charles Babbage and Ada Lovelace. Like, you being British, I expect maybe those names ring a bell?
Names do, yeah.
Right, yeah.
But what they did...
No, I mean, fair play. They were like mathematicians. So start with that, and then like there's a bit of history of how things developed. But when it came to developing the first electromechanical computer, or like one of the first ones, there was a man in Bell Labs in the US that he worked at this team at the Bell Lab, and like they knew the problem at hand. They knew like the theory behind the simple like computing machines, right? But they were trying to figure out how to translate mathematics into something that they could use. And they, for instance, those early calculating machines, they were using like different types of cylinders that, when adjusted in proper ratio, would at a number kind of of kind of iterations and spins, would somehow produce the required number. And kind of the thinking was always going in terms of this kind of mechanical sort of rotating gears and various types of sort of kind of pieces of a bigger equipment that just kind of physically interacted with each other. And it was a big trouble for these people to try to think of mathematics like addition, subtraction, in terms of these computers, right? These early versions of computers. And the reason I'm mentioning it is because there was this paradigm shift that was introduced at the time, and there was one guy who used that to actually produce the first sort of proper computer, if we can call it this way. And it was that he used a system that was developed kind of around the same time, or not long before that, which was the binary system. So in mathematics, I hope I'm not lying, but it was developed roughly around the same time, but people weren't really using it. Like it was a concept that was slowly, becoming more and more well known, and you could perform like union operations on it, kind of set operations on it, right? Intersections, differences of these binary elements. But what really kind of fascinated me is that there was one man who applied that binary system into representing math. So he translated, math from decimal system that everybody used until then, right, that everybody was familiar with, to binary. And the moment he did that, a lot of the problems simplified. A lot of the problem became so much more doable within the tools that they have. So apparently he went and actually built that first computer. The moment like it clicked in his head, he just went to his workshop and picked up items, or he went maybe even to the lab and brought it back to his home, and he built it on his kitchen table. So his wife walked in there and he sees him like putting together all these different like compartments of this to be first electromechanical computer, like in terms that we understand it now, like using binary system, electrons, etc. And she called it the Model K, after the Model T, is it? I think the Model T, like one of the first, the first cars, right? And she said it was Model K due to the fact that he was doing it in kitchen. And since then, this first computer that this man built was referred to as Model K, and he brought it next day to the Bell Labs, and they all discussed it. And from there, they kind of started building it all up. But it really fascinates me, like how he went and just changed the way he'd look at the same problem, right? From this one system into another, and from taking it from this extremely difficult way of seeing things into this much simpler way of seeing things, and using that, conjured this whole branch of kind of hardware, design that resulted in like modern computers and stuff like that. So yeah, there's plenty of like really interesting stories along these lines where things are so much simpler if you just look at them from the right perspective.
Yeah, paradigm. There's been a lot of paradigm shifts. It's almost like I've given myself new paradigms to look through. So yeah, it just when I look at a challenge now, I can think of how I would even start to look at it. And if that doesn't work, I can try it from a different approach. So I'm sure there are going to be more paradigms going forward, but at least I've got 2 or 3 in the repertoire now.
Good man. Well done.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, let me show you what I've been doing today. Today I've been looking at deployment. So I have it now hosted on Netlify. So yeah, it's on Netlify, and I've worked out how to deploy without having to do a build, if that makes sense. Because Netlify kind of does the build for you. So I've learned a lot about, building static assets and all this kind of stuff today. So I have it hosted. I've got the code. Like if we go to the actual GitHub repo, I'll get rid of my screen. There we go. So on my GitHub repo, I've got it listed as the site there. So it's deployed on Netlify. But I've also just been trying to do a bug fix. So it's been good practice to go back to the development version. And then whenever I update the master on there, Netlify does the build and then updates it. So that's been really cool to see that in action. Worth you checking this out. So this is what I did earlier. I made a branch off to test the Netlify, and then I figured out how it was working. So all I do now is just keep this one master. And then like this morning, I've just added a new branch to try and fix. I've got an issue with the Twitter button. So I've made a new branch, but then what I'll do is I'll merge it back into the master. So Netlify and the master are linked. Yeah, so it's kind of slightly different to how I'd been doing it previously. I mean, I can see the logic in having the 2 branches, but what I tend to do is just have a temporary development branch, do the thing, and then merge it back in, and then just keep doing that. I guess if we're looking at the overall architecture, then initially I looked at using fetch and JSON and using that, which meant that I need to basically make my own JSON object with all the questions in. I initially struggled to get that working, mainly just from lack of practice of working with promise objects and stuff. So I reverted to just keeping it simple. So I made a variable called questions that had all the questions in. And then all I was doing is having my main app component would just render this question component. So I kept it super simple just to get it working. I said, let me just at least get something that grabs it and displays something within it. So you can see from either of these that this is the question component, which is the state. So I've managed to get that one working. Is it gone? Okay. So I kept it quite simple. So all I'm working with is app component with a question component within it, and that just collects a question at random from I guess it's the question object, and then displays it as a view. So that was the basic functionality. And then I also then had to look into how to randomize it. And I wasn't quite sure how to do that. So what I did was just did a bit of Googling and tried a few different things. Initially, what I did is I had a big block of code from like Stack Overflow and just slapped it straight in my code, knowing it wouldn't work, but at least seeing if I could figure out, to tinker it while it's in there. Really struggled with that and thought, sod that, let me just do it line by line. Okay, well, I need that there, I need that there, and got it half working. And that's when I probably spent about 3 or 4 days trying to work out how to get that block working, which I did in the end. I'd gained a bit of confidence from the last project and knew that it would be, I knew that this one would be a slightly easier project, mainly because I'd seen a load of other people do this in vanilla JavaScript. So I knew that I could have easily just gone and found someone else who'd done this project and just copied that, but I deliberately didn't. And I'm proud and happy that I didn't. Admittedly, I maybe went and copied subsections of it, like how do people do a non-repeat on a random selector and things like that. But even then, that was still quite cool to find it out of context and make it work within my context, rather than take the whole context and say, yeah, here we go, I've done it. So I definitely had more confidence, and I think having the debugging skills that we did on the last project helped immensely, because it enabled me to just build up line by line, like get something on the screen, have an assumption about what it should be doing, and then check if it is doing that. And then if it isn't, you can figure out why not, and then change it, and then add another line of code, and then keep doing it that way. When I was using the debugger, it kept freezing and wasn't working as I expected. And at that point, I thought, well, to be honest, I only really need a couple of console logs. So at that point, it seemed overkill, and the fact that it kept freezing. And also, I kind of couldn't. I didn't know how to do it with, because I obviously wanted to watch some variables. I understand how the debugger works, and I thought, well, that's easy. Let me just watch my 3 states as they go. But the debugger, you stop it at a certain line, but it's almost like with a React app, you've got states before and after a button click. So at what point, I couldn't work out. It's almost like there's 2 dimensions. There's not just top of the code to the bottom of the code. There's pre-click and post-click, if that made sense. So rather than do that, I actually managed to just kept with simple console logs, just tactically placed, but also was showing me exactly rather than just say console log, just random text, it was saying, this function's being called. The state this is the current state of this variable. And then it would have the actual, the variable listed. So I didn't use the debugger as much. Firstly, I started the React app from scratch and used some Emmet abbreviations or whatever they're called just to get the main components, like boilerplate. So that was quite good. And I figured I'd only need one state, which would just be the question for the question component. So that was quite easy to set up. At the time, I didn't have these 2 extra states. I didn't think I needed them, basically. The randomize function, this was, so part of that big chunk of code I got from Stack Overflow, I broke it down into, what is each of these lines actually doing? And I learned a lot from that as well, but also started to get my head around, what's the word? Well, just scope, because these are all indented and functions within functions. And then, I didn't realize, or at least it hadn't sunk in, that every function kind of needs to return something. And if that isn't returned, then it's not available outside of that code block, which I knew from day one. But until I'd actually worked with it, I was like, well, why can't I get this thing out of there? And it's because it was in a different code block. Yeah, so this is literally what I did. I don't know if you can see it on here, but I literally copied the whole block, and all of this on the right-hand side is, what is this line of code doing? And there was, there's still a few question marks in there now, but I got it working. But, these are basics, but yeah, there's a difference between reading about it or doing it in a little exercise, and then there's actually being able to understand it and work with it in the context of a full application, albeit a very basic application. So yeah, it's just been great practice to understand objects, execution flow, scope. So I got all that working. So I deliberately kept the app kind of simple, and the experience I had from the other app, the first app, I was able to do some sort of conditional stuff. I mean, the thing about the clipboard and the tweet, these were just extra functions that I made up. Oh, wouldn't it be cool if? So I've actually managed to get them working, which was, so that was quite cool to look at Twitter and look at being able to look at external documentation that says, if you want to use this is how you do it. So that's actually quite enjoyable and quite easy to go to the docs and say, oh, okay, well, I just need to do that. So I got those two working, but yeah, I was having trouble with everything rendering twice, basically. So what was happening is my randomize function was working, but then on the re-render, the logic was getting reset, and it was driving me nuts, and I couldn't work it out. And yeah, then the other day I remembered that the point in having a state is that it holds even after a re-render. So then I thought, oh, hang on a minute, why don't? Because I guess if we're looking at my main architecture for this, it was like I've got my questions array, and what I want to do is use the spread operator and have a copy array and also an empty array. So every time a question got pulled randomly from the copy array would reduce by 1, and the empty array would fill by 1. And I would just keep doing that. And then once it got to 0, reset. But what was happening is every time the app rendered, it was going from 5 to 4 and then re-rendering and keep doing that. So the two arrays never continued. So I thought, well, hang on, what if I keep these arrays in a state? So then because I'd understood state, I was able to knock that part up within an hour. And I was like, yeah, I got it working. So yeah, so these are my two arrays, is basically data and chosen items. So data is basically using the spread operator. It's just a copy of the questions array, which is my questions array as a variable, yeah. And that's kind of what I used is, yeah, managed to use it, give those arrays some state so they would hold their values even though the app was getting re-rendered. So I kind of circumnavigated it because I know that re-rendering is part of React. It's to stop flickering and some other stuff, but it was screwing up my logic.
Yeah,
because it was resetting those arrays every time.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a very good observation. It's generally data persistence, right? You kind of touched on what happens when data gets reset. Like, if you initialize it and you don't store it, in quotes, but like if you don't store it in any way, that reinitialization will run on every event, in your case re-rendering, and will just reset it to the original state. So observing that, having to deal with it, it's a great exercise. It's fucking amazing. You got to figure it out, on your own. Was that just like a serendipity and you just kind of a light bulb lit in your head, or did you read that solution somewhere?
Yeah, bit of both, because if we go back to paradigms, I was trying to tackle this with the paradigm of let me stop it re-rendering.
Okay.
But then as soon as I realized, well, let me come out of that context and say, well, let's allow it to re-render.
Correct. Yeah.
But hold the data. And I was like, oh yeah. So yeah, it was serendipitous because I probably spent, I think I probably spent a good day or two, and by that's probably like 6 hours trying to work that out.
Yeah.
And I was about to give up and thought, well, let me just read this last document. And one sentence stuck out that said, state holds its data after a render. And I was like, oh my God, that's what I need to do.
Right.
So just that whole paradigm shift.
Yeah.
I mean, it probably is possible to prevent the re-render, and I did my damnedest to do it.
Yeah.
But again, just changing the paradigm of looking at it, I was able to get it working. And, it was a buzz when I did. I was like, oh yeah, finally.
Good man. It feels good, doesn't it? If you especially if you spend days on something like that and you manage to get it right, it does feel good.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was almost, I guess it was giving up. But, I put some hours in, I tried a load of things, and I was about to give, someone a message and say, look, how can I figure this out? And yeah, just managed to figure it out myself.
Perfect.
So yeah, it was that the re-render and the non-random part were the two things that I struggled with.
Yeah.
The rest was kind of sort of just fiddly, and managed to get it all working. There's one thing I'm sort of struggling with at the moment. I mean, it all works, but what's happening at the moment is, this is an extra feature which was just an extra add-on. So what I had initially, and this is I guess this is my production. Oh, you bugger! I've stopped it.
Restart it. Take it easy.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the hosted version. This is the production build. And what happens is the copy to clipboard's working. I've got no sort of animation that says you've copied to clipboard, but it obviously works because I can paste it in there. Yeah. But the tweet button, the functionality works, but it's not carrying the state over. It is, but it's only doing the initial state, the default state, which is click button to start. So this is the string it's carrying over,
right?
But that isn't the current state. So hang on, that's gonna mess it up. Those are only minor things, but other than that, I'm pretty happy with how it's all turned out, and I'm happy that I've got it hosted and got my head around building it. So
sure, yeah.
Other than that Twitter button, which I've got working back in the development build, but it doesn't look like a Twitter button anymore. So the functionality works, but it doesn't look right. And then in the one that's hosted on Netlify, it looks right, but the functionality doesn't work. So
where is your?
I could do some more tweaking, and I probably will.
So I'm actually just curious. Where does your Twitter kind of button is? Where does it get its information from?
Yeah, let me start my development server.
Sure, yeah, let's have a look at that, yeah.
Because there was an extra bit of functionality which because of the weather app, I managed to implement, which was don't show this stuff until the state is so-and-so. So on this version here, the clipboard and the Twitter button aren't there.
Perfect.
But as soon as you click generate...
Right? In your...
Yeah, I used a ternary operator related to my CSS. So if state is this, hide it. Otherwise, display normal. So
cool.
So the tweet function works here. Actually, it might not let me through because I've got a blocker on to stop me going on Twitter. But that actually works.
Decent.
But the button doesn't. But the button doesn't look right.
Yeah.
And then that one, the button looks right, but the function doesn't work. And as far as I can see, I just had a quick fiddle with this morning, but it comes in. It's this block here.
Okay.
So I don't know if you. And I think the issue is coming if I add this class name, which is what Twitter says to do, Twitter share button. Yeah. That's what's causing it to go wonky.
Well, so that definitely explains why doesn't it look okay, right? If we just remove that class, that explains why it doesn't look fine.
When the Twitter button was looking good but not functioning, it still appeared even when it was supposed to be hidden.
Can you show me this? Because that is interesting, actually.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this is my development build now.
Yeah.
And we're on the development branch, the Twitter fix. So if I uncomment this, it should be hidden if we refresh this.
Interesting.
Yeah. So not only is it
okay.
Yeah.
Right. I think I see what's happening there.
Okay.
Go back to your code.
Because if I click generate, it will unhide it and the clipboard appears.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, the Twitter was still appearing even though it should be hidden.
What's your hiding logic here? What are we relying on to hide stuff?
I have a CSS div on this bottom line, which you can probably see if I look at the console. But the logic behind it is
this icon wrapper, is it, or?
Yeah, it's icon wrapper. No, it's the share. I've got a share bar. So this is my ternary operator. If the question is the default state string, go share bar hidden, and then I've got otherwise share bar visible. So I've basically got
reasonable, and then let's have a look at
so I've got visibility hidden. I've also tried display none. And then display flex and all this stuff. So those are the two CSS classes. But
right.
I can't work out why that.
That's so funny. All right, let's go to your actually to the app itself, and let's look at the what is it called, the inspector. So actually inside of the the website itself.
Okay.
Yeah, just look at let's have a look at what these classes are and how is it that it displays. Because what we're seeing here is that obviously the parent element has that class, because otherwise the other part of it would be visible as well, and it isn't. So we know that it has that class, but somehow that Twitter button displays through it anyway. So if you want to just inspect that element, that tweet element, just any part of it will
any part of it.
I mean, it will just kind of go up the hierarchy.
Okay.
So where is the top level that we're dealing with? We have a span.
So the other thing, look at my app. It's gone all wonky. Look, it jumps out of the box.
Well, that's just a bit of CSS due to it being too squashed. So right. So if we look at the share bar, let's confirm that it's actually visibility hidden.
How do you mean? How would I do that?
Well, you have this share bar thing that you just told me about. That's where you have your ternary operator. Let's find that in your HTML here. So just scroll up a little bit. Right here, I'm just scrolling, and where is it? Share bar hidden. So share bar is indeed hidden. That's right. And I think I already see what is the issue. So we see that our clipboard icon, the FA clipboard, is correctly there, and right next to it, we see another element that's called iframe. Have you come across that before?
It rings a bell.
Right. It's
so that shouldn't be there.
No, it should, and that's generally how it works, and that is fine. But it highlights kind of that highlights essentially what's happening and why are we having these issues. So quite simply, iframe, imagine like embedding an HTML page inside of an HTML page. So your HTML page has an HTML component element, and you have head and body, all these different elements and tags that you use, right? And you normally have just one per page, right? Like you have your topmost HTML, then you have inside of it you have the body. You only have one of these. Well, iframe allows you to do that inside of another page. And if you actually have a look at the contents of this iframe, just scrolling a tiny bit down, you see that the first element of it will be this hash document. Inside of it we can see the HTML, the head, the body. Do you see that? So this essentially, this little button inserts another HTML page, a very, very small one. I mean, we're not really calling it a page at this stage anymore, but it's essentially entering another, in quotation marks, let's call it a page, instead of that Twitter button that you had before.
Gotcha.
Right? And the problem there is that since we have, this secondary HTML page at this stage, the CSS rules from the outer CSS page, HTML page that we're dealing with, therefore, the share bar hidden, don't necessarily apply inside of that embedded page.
Yes,
so
that makes sense.
If this was a button, if this was an icon, if this was any kind of normal element, you would have seen the expected behavior fine. But because you're seeing the iframe, and I think it's also another good lesson, so it's really good we're seeing that at this stage, because it will save you some time in the future wondering what's going on. Whenever you see iframes, it's kind of like you're opening a world into a door into a new world that suddenly will behave differently to everything else in the outer world. Outer world being your page and your CSS that defines how things look. But once you enter the iframe, it's like if you kind of stepped away from that world that you've been talking about, and you now move to another world, and there's different laws of physics in that place.
Yes.
Sorry. So that
makes sense.
That's where we're seeing this. So I'm thinking about that randomization function. I just wanted to also make a comment on that, because it's fantastic you got it to work. And your logic is working. Let's just kind of quickly have a look at what actually is happening inside there. So we've got the randomize function, which returns a object with a random item member that actually contains the other function called get random value. And fair enough. I mean, I'm not entirely sure why we're doing this, why we couldn't just have the contents of randomize directly return the choice, so we wouldn't have this double wrapping. But I mean, fair play. Because that's the path. When I decided to sack this off, I didn't use an object. I was just trying to, because it's this line here, like it does return an object with, and I was like, what even is that? That's the one line of code which I kind of know what it is, but I don't know how and why it's working. But because I got it working, I was like, I don't care. Right, let's leave it here.
So I'm sure there would be an easier way of doing it.
I mean, to me, it's just like your function that you're calling at line 47. You're calling randomize data.random item, right? You're calling that function.
Yeah.
That should simply call get random value, provided that get random value is defined in the scope that we're talking about, because currently it isn't. Currently it's defined inside of the randomized scope, so inside of line 47, inside of the random question function. It's not available, but if we made it available, to me it feels like just calling that should be enough. I'm guessing you fiddle with that, so let's not focus on that, but kind of worth highlighting. It's good it works this way. And inside of the actual get random value, the moment we want to get a question, right, we are seeing that you're first checking for the length of data. I'm assuming this is the block of code where you're going to reset your arrays. Is that right?
Yeah.
So you set your data to chosen items, isn't that?
Yeah.
And then chosen items, we reinitialize it to an empty array. Then we find the index, which is that, the random integer, right, that you get from the math random multiplied by the data length. Math random, you're familiar with that function? Do you know what it does, more or less?
Yeah.
Because you showed me that you kind of went through all of these blocks, one by one, and figured out what they do. So it's brilliant to kind of get that understanding. Random is a common function that you use in programming a lot sometimes. But when you do, it's quite helpful. So it's good to kind of get a familiarity with it. Then we're doing a data splice between index. We get one element after index, and we access the first element, right, of whatever we get back from that splice. That's the line 29. Then we set data. Because splicing will remove that item at index. Will it not? Is that right? Yeah. So therefore, our data now can be set to this updated value. And chosen items, which is our kind of secondary array that will collect these kind of used questions. We push into that, our choice. We set chosen items. And finally, we will return the choice. Yeah, perfect. So that is brilliant. That's great. It's interesting you kind of came up with this sort of logic here. I'm just kind of wondering, why do we use chosen items? Where do we use chosen items other than here? Because my thinking is, okay, well, we have the data that is initialized from the questions.js, right? On the top of your app.js, you're taking your questions and you do this right? You turn your questions variable into data. So I'm wondering, just right there, right, line 16. You use that questions variable to initialize your data state. So I'm curious, why is it that you went for using this second array called chosen items to reinitialize this data, and why aren't you using questions variable to reinitialize on line 25. There is a thinking phase, and I'm wondering, are you thinking about the answer, or are you not getting my question?
I get the question. Yeah, no.
Right, okay.
I mean, the quick answer is I didn't think about it. I just copied that answer and got it working.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
The second part of that is me thinking, well, how else would it work?
So if we replace line 25, instead of doing data equals chosen items, we say data equals questions. Obviously a copy of questions, I would assume, because we don't want to be modifying the questions
you don't
array.
Want to,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Kind of the same way, on line 16, you have this, ellipsis questions, right? The array initialization with ellipsis questions. You called it nicely. What was the name that you gave this operation?
It's a spread operator.
Yeah, spreading it, right? So you kind of, I think essentially what you're doing there is you're copying those values from within the question array.
And creating a new array.
Exactly. So that's pretty much a copy. So if we just took that exact same code and replace chosen item on line 25, would we get the same functionality? And I don't mean like you have to do it straight away. I'm just kind of curious if you think this would work as well.
Not sure.
Right.
I can't quite picture it.
Fair enough, man. Don't worry. So it's probably just something to, I don't know, maybe give it a thought, like, after we're done with the call, like ask yourself that question. If we're initializing the data at one point in time from another data source, right? So our data source in this case is questions, which in turn reads it from the questions.js. So this is our data source. If we're initializing it in one way at one point in time, which is our line 16, and then we want to reinitialize, that same variable to that exact same state. I mean, I'm using the word state, but I don't mean the React state. Yeah. I'm just saying the state of this array, right? The question is, why aren't we using that same data source as we were at the beginning? Why are we using the secondary array that kind of holds it in the meantime? Again, no need to try to push yourself to figure it out right away. But I just kind of want to push you into thinking about how can you optimize your code one way or another. Where are you maybe allocating some data that you don't have to be allocating? It's not necessarily because your code is wrong in any particular way. Like, it works, it's fine. Especially that you figured it all out by yourself. Putting together other people's code, but tinkering around for a while. So it's brilliant. It's wonderful. Like, I'm really happy that you got about that. But also, from here, we want to be looking at and then once we got that first solution that we spoke about, get something, get your foot through the door. How can we then refactor it and make it better, right? And the question that I'm asking myself here is okay, well, now we have two ways in which we could reinitialize data on line 25. And why is that we're choosing, this secondary array, the chosen items that we keep on pushing to, rather than just using this initial state that remains as it was, right? We're not modifying it, we're not changing it in any way. It was, our original set of arrays, a set of questions at line 16, and it will stay that original set of questions, throughout the execution of our app. So we're asking ourselves this question of, okay, can we, instead of using that extra array, can we simplify our code? Obviously, you can probably see it now that this will reduce our, maybe about 4 lines of code from this, nonetheless very short code, but we're chipping away a little bit of unnecessary, potentially unnecessary code that you want to be sort of getting familiar with that kind of thought process, right? Of what other ways there are to to approach it. And the truth is that, there's probably a few other ways that you could have gone about doing this exercise. The way you went about it is valid. It's cool. I could maybe suggest a few other paths that you could think about exploring if you want to just kind of go down onto, just more sort of tinkering with the logic rather than building apps for a bit.
No, go for it. Yeah.
I kind of feel like this was fairly useful. Like you had to go through some, more complex, programming logic here to be able to figure out the right answers here. And you did a great job, but it's very different doing this when compared to like, CSS or HTML or like, fetching data from a data source. Like that's I hope you can see the distinction between doing that and doing all these other things, right? So this actually is like proper programming, if you could say that. I mean, I probably shouldn't say that because there'll be a crowd of people that'll throw stones my way. But this is the closest you'll get to proper programming at this stage. Setting views and setting stylings and all that stuff. Fetching some data, passing data around is still sort of relatively primary school level. But when it comes to like understanding your data, the way it's structured, the way you access your data, and especially doing random access to that data, we're kind of stepping at a different level here, which is why I'm super happy that you went ahead and tackled it, right? So I won't go over it right now because I feel like, we've been discussing this particular function for a good while, but I'll write you a little indication, I would say, after our call, or maybe tomorrow, about what other way you could think about tackling it, and just as a sort of secondary exercise, see if you can figure it out that way. And this actually reminds me quite a lot of how we used to be doing exercises back in uni. Sometimes we'd get an exercise and you'd fix it one way, but then they'll tell you, right, well, now that you figured it out this way, can you do it that other way? And it's the same problem that you're trying to solve, but you just have to approach it from a different perspective. And I remember these exercises being pretty useful. So to kind of improve that core programming knowledge, I would say.
Yeah, I'm down for that. Yeah, and also I'll have a look into just optimizing code, because at the moment I'm at that stage where I'm just happy if it works.
Yeah, true.
And then eventually, I think understanding, what do you call it, inefficient allocation of data. Like that's the kind of concept I've never really looked into.
Fair enough. And
things like performance, I can definitely see there's parts of this app which do take a long time, and I'm sure they can be fixed. Just be more efficient. But
okay,
I'll have a look.
Wonderful. Like it's good you're aware of this. It's good you're thinking these terms already. I think another word of wisdom, this time not from me, but I read about it somewhere, is this mantra that you want to think about in programming sometimes, which is called, don't prematurely optimize your code. And I love it because it actually even applies outside of the programming world. Like when you try to take care of stuff before you even know whether it's worth taking care of them, because you don't even know if they're the bottleneck. I often find myself, or other people, trying to put a lot of effort into optimizing something in their lives or in whatever project they're doing without even understanding whether this is something they should be optimizing. But because the opportunity is up there, you think, oh, I'll do it now so that I don't have to do it later. Was the truth maybe it's too soon, or you don't even need to be optimizing this. So it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool mantra, but it especially applies to programming. Is when you ask yourself the question, right? If I leave it as it is, if I don't optimize anything, am I running into any troubles, right? Like if you can see potential troubles, sneaking around the corner. If you think, oh, I'm exposing some private, authentication data of my users in like some very obvious way, like you console log their passwords. You get a user data from a server and then you console log it. Like, it doesn't cost you anything right now, but in very, very soon future it will. So that's not prematurely optimizing, that's just being kind of, responsible for your code. But when it kind of comes to, something like you have a function that takes 2 seconds to execute and you think, maybe I could make it 1 second 45, 1 second and a half, whatever, right? you want to ask yourself, am I really improving anything here? Or am I just, shaving away just a tiny bit for sake of optimizing something? So it doesn't apply in this case. Like, it's perfectly good that you're looking at it in terms of optimization, but I thought I'd bring it up at this stage so you don't hear about it, 2 years from now. Just to keep that on the back of your head. Whenever you're like looking at your code and you think, oh, I should probably start optimizing it, just go like, is this what I want to be optimizing? Or maybe I could make it look better, or maybe I could prevent, some unnecessary allocations, or I could comment it. I have, amount of time that I can dedicate into this particular project. Let's decide on what's important.
Yeah.
So just kind of that sort of, intermediate mantra coming in.
Yeah.
No, cool, sense. Man. I'm super happy you got this far with this. So honestly, well done.
Thank you.
Professional. It looks good. Like, your code looks good. Like, it would be good, like I said, to maybe look into this debugging a bit more, to actually do a production branch and looking at this stuff at least once. At least so you have a project that once you went through just doing it this way. But even then, like, what you're building already is pretty good. And I feel that focusing now on like getting this part of your knowledge amplified, and I'm actually pointing at this randomized function. You cannot see that, but that's what I meant. So strengthening that part of your programming knowledge is probably the good direction to go. So that it isn't so much memorizing how React works, which is something we could carry on looking into, I suppose. But I feel that, especially that you seem to have somehow enjoyed this, it's kind of like a puzzle that you just have to go over. Maybe looking into solving this kind of programming issue rather than building apps is something we could lay in front of you for the next couple of weeks or whatever, and see how you tackle these. Because obviously, the goal we're looking at here is we want you to have a few websites, web pages, right? Build at some point. So we already have two. They both look good. They both function. And we want to be adding on top of that. So that will definitely be a good idea to put, keep on putting ahead of you. But I'm kind of trying to think, are there other things we should be doing in between as well? Right? So for instance, there was this 30 apps or 30 days of code. I remember what it was, like the 30 JS
JavaScript
projects.
30,
Yeah, so some of these were actually quite interesting to look at, especially kind of looking at it from perspective of, are there any, and if there are, then how many there are that you could do just by looking at the specification, but not going through them as a tutorial? That's kind of what I'm wondering. Do you want to bring up that page? Should we have a look at that? Because these were pretty cool apps, actually. They are pretty difficult, as far as I remember, at the stage where we are right now. But I'm kind of curious, if we just look through all of them, is there anything that you go like, at least I have a brief idea, where could I start going about it? And see if you can give that a shot.
Yeah, I definitely think, I think you're right, because like, I'm fairly comfortable in like very basic React, but it's getting that, how would I tackle a problem and how would I tackle it efficiently? It's those two muscles which probably need building up.
Okay.
I'm not sure if this page actually, here we go. So, one of the other things I did look at the other day was, I had a look at like HackerRank and LeetCode, which seem a bit too advanced at this stage, but I did find another one that just had really like piss easy challenges, like make an array do this. I thought, to be honest, I could probably benefit from starting at stupidly basic things, and then building up that muscle in terms of not just figuring out how I would approach it through that OOP lens, but how would I then put that into code, and then also how would I then make that code even better. It has.
That sounds wonderful. Do you want to show me that?
Yeah.
That would be really good. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm quite happy. Like, I've got two solid projects that I can show and iterate on going forward.
Right.
But what was the one website? Edabit. Yeah, not heard it. I just found it by accident the other day, and I thought, oh, this seems like a good level because I want to come in right at the bottom.
Yeah.
And just get that muscle of thinking about things in terms of.
Oh, so these are like small challenges, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So return the sum of two numbers. If I'm honest, I could probably do that, but like even like challenge number 3. Without Googling, I would probably struggle. So something that's, as simple as this.
Create a function that takes two numbers as argument and return the sum. Okay, well, I understand you would know how to do this, right?
Yeah.
So which one you said you may have trouble with?
Yeah, well, just something as easy as this.
Right, return the next number from the integers path.
I mean, like, I'd like to have a go at this and just...
You should.
See it. Yeah, see if it's as hard as I think. I mean, initially I looked at that and thought, shit, I wouldn't know how to do that. But now I'm thinking about it, I probably would. But I'd still have to have a go at it to get it working. So
yeah.
So I'm sure something like this. Well, I mean, there'd be no harm in trying it, other than my time could be spent better elsewhere. But
no, see, I think this is exactly what I was talking about when I just mentioned it would be good to grind that core programming kind of logic skill. This is it. So wonderful. Can you actually code in this website? Like, is there like an interpreter?
Yeah, pretty sure you can. Yeah.
If you go to code, is that what it's going to be?
Oh, I'm not logged in.
No, as in just that. Oh, okay. He's going to ask you for that, right? I mean, never mind.
Yeah. I don't know.
Like if you got that.
Oh,
yeah, you can. Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, it's decent.
So I figure something. I mean, admittedly, it's very basic, but I kind of feel like I jumped this step. I mean, I've managed to survive so far, but it's like I did HTML, CSS,
right?
Then jumped into JavaScript tutorials, then into React tutorials, then building stuff within React,
right?
But kind of jumped over that. Let's do some very basic JavaScript.
Oh shit! Yeah.
I kind of feel like I don't have that muscle. It's not as strong as I'd like it to be. So I mean, I could easily have Stack Overflowed or Googled the question and then worked it out.
But that's exactly
just being able to figure it out in my head.
No, exactly.
Something like that.
It's good because I guess you get answers. Like if you get something wrong, like you can actually directly see what the answer would be. That helps you go ahead. Yeah. It actually makes me think of. I started doing like IQ questions like a few days ago, just kind of for fun. I found like this one document that has a lot of them. And it was funny how like at the beginning I screwed up all of the questions because they were actually really hard. But because I can see the answers straight away, like I can look them up directly. By the time I did like 30, my mindset has changed completely to a point where like later I was just looking at it from completely different perspectives and managed actually to get some of these questions. So for you to be able to do this analogically and like, screw up some of these first ones, but like get these answers, get your brain thinking in a particular way, that would be excellent. Man, even more so, what I thought, I mean, feel free to say no to that, right? But I thought, what if you set yourself a challenge to do on one day, right? Within like whatever 3-4 hours blocks of work you do, or I don't know how much you do, to try to just like max out the number of these that you can do. So it isn't that you stick with one question for 3 hours, but like if you can't get it in the first 15 minutes, you just skip it and you go somewhere else and you go like, oh, maybe I'll come back to this one later. So I've seen that these are like split into blocks of like easy, hard, medium. Do you want to come back to that page that we saw before just to see how many of these questions are there?
Yeah.
I mean, like I say, feel free to say no to this, but I'm kind of thinking like if we could set it for you to sort of look like a bit of I don't want to call it an exam because like you said, you haven't really done this sort of stuff before. But some sort of a method that will push you to just kind of try to go through as many as you can rather than just figuring out this one particular question, really hard. So scroll down.
Yeah, I mean, these do look fairly simple. So I'd imagine, like these are all the super easy ones.
Right. So there's about what, like 20 of them, is that?
Let's have a look. See how many there are.
That is really good.
Yeah, because the way I'm picturing this is, it's not really an exam; it's a gym.
Yeah.
It's for me to go in there, just pick up the easiest weight, I'll probably fly through the easy way to go, oh, this is easy, and then I'll keep going, and then I go, oh, this one's a bit hard. Then eventually I'll pick one up and go, fuck, I can't lift it. But I know if I keep doing the level below that, eventually I'll be able to.
Definitely.
There's hundreds of these.
I love how coachy you are, and you come up with these clever words like gym instead of exam.
Yeah, there's quite a few. I mean, I would actually love to go through some of these in the next couple of days. I mean, this would be quite nice for the weekend as well, because I'll finish the project, and I'd like to build up that muscle of thinking in functions and objects.
No, wonderful, mate. This is brilliant. If you know more of pages like this one, write them down, and it's an excellent just tool for like working on that problem solving muscle. Because this is called problem solving, isn't it? Like you just are being given a puzzle and you have to answer. You have to come up with an answer. Yeah, great. I mean, man, so
cool.
Maybe like let's set. I don't know. I'm trying to think. So how many hours a day you do still?
I'm averaging 3.
3, yeah.
Well, aiming for 3 and sort of max out. But I've been maxing out at 3 mainly because I've been taxing the brain big time, because I've been properly. Whereas something that's probably a little easier, I can probably do more hours.
No, fair enough. Yeah. So what I'm thinking is, would you be up for, you sitting down one day with some snacks and a kind of Coke, setting a timer 3 hours, bang, obviously take a break halfway through, like you do your Pomodoros and stuff, but just do 3 hours and just see how many of these you can squeeze out. I mean, I'm not even sure if I'm suggesting something good here, but I'm feeling like if you'd be put at this sort of, I don't want to call it a stressful situation, but like you said it, like, a high stakes sort of, I just want to push, ahead with these and see how many can you get. And, I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't answer half of them, or if you struggle to answer majority of these. But it'll be wonderful, because we could then really look at, where are we missing here? Is it the integers that you're struggling with? Is it like operators on numbers? Is it maybe string operations that you're struggling? The conversion between booleans and integers, and we'd have like a very specific, pinpointing into where we need to, sort of follow up. And I feel these are quite varied as well. So that'll be great.
Yeah, because I mean, if they are piss easy, I can either change the difficulty or I'll fly through them anyway. But either way, it's good practice, because like one of my mates, a guy called Countryside Coder, he said that his turning point, I think I might have mentioned it to you, was he did this course, but then he was able to do all this without following along. He could look at the each of these and do it on himself, and I thought, shit, I'm nowhere near that at this moment.
Right.
But I thought that's quite a cool thing, to be able to look at the challenge and think, how would I do that, and then go and do it. But these seemed a bit advanced for me to do that straight off the bat.
Well, I was kind of wondering doing that as well. Yeah, what you just mentioned before, doing that JavaScript 30. So I'm thinking, is there anything here that you can, in fact, at the level you're at, tackle? So we have a bit of that, core programming with like objects and arrays, references, copy, tally string times would reduce. Sorting brand names without articles. Yeah, that seems reasonable. Native speech recognition. Fucking hell, that's easy. Like, how would you even go about that?
Well, the cool thing about this course is that you can do it as a follow along.
Yeah.
Or you can look at the source code and work backwards, or you can just look at the initial challenge and then do it yourself.
All right. Let's scroll along. Let's see the last ones.
Because the other thing I was thinking is, I've done a lot of my DOM manipulation in React and not done much in vanilla.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But whether I would need it or not at this stage, I don't know. But it wouldn't be harm in not in.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, but it's kind of good to know some like really basic stuff, like get element by ID, or get element by class, or adding a class to an element object that you have returned.
Yeah.
But past that stage, like trying to like implement your own reactivity in vanilla JavaScript, I don't think you necessarily have to be going that far.
No, but I mean, yeah, because like even those basics like create element and stuff like that, I did that so long ago without a grasp of JavaScript that I kind of half got it and thought, all right, I've got it. Let me move on. Right. But if someone, if someone was to say to me, do this in vanilla JavaScript, I'd be like, oh shit, I don't know. But I can do it in React, like on submit and on change, and I can change the state. But yeah, well, we can definitely have a think about this as a next step
maybe
in
after
terms
that,
of having a fiddle with these. But in terms of your challenge, I accept. I would love to sit down and just see how many of these I do, and just to build that muscle up.
So I would say let's avoid making it 3 hours, because I just thought that is just just too much. Let's make it like, say, an hour and a half. That'd be all right. Yeah. The rest of that, obviously. I mean, after that challenge, just push ahead and like do as many more as you want, but or like change the level or whatever, pick some other exercise. But I'm just curious if you just were to like try to push for an hour and a half, and really give yourself minutes to complete each of them. Not feeling bad about not completing a lot, but just find ones that you can do right off the bat without having to think about it for too long. So we have these out of the way. We know, okay, this is not what we have to focus on, and whatever's left, go back to them and try to go over the ones that you skipped, and then see how many of these you can push through.
Gotcha. So almost treat it like an exam, like do the questions and then come back to the ones with the time remaining.
Kind of, yeah. Although it seemed like an infinite list, so I know you could just carry on scrolling through it. But go to like 50 maybe, and once you're at 50th, then go back and keep them going down. Right? And until you can get.
I'll see how easy they are. I mean, this will definitely show me where my level is in terms of JavaScript skills.
Bro, I would even say more. You know what you should do? You should do like 5 of these at the beginning of every coding day. That would be a really good way to start a day.
Brilliant.
So that if 5 is too much, just do 2 something. But there are even like apps that you can download like for your phone that will throw this kind of challenges at you. I remember I used to have one of these, but at the time I didn't quite catch on to it. But it's kind of fun that it's not just when you sit down and code that it happens, but like you're on a bus and you could do a quick code example, that little challenge puzzle. But we can leave that for consideration for later. But at least for now,
cool.
So we'll let's try doing that, but also think about introducing something like let me do 5 of these, within the first 20 minutes of my coding day, and if I can
5 of these ones,
the little one, not the JavaScript 30. That shouldn't. If you can do that, no. So 5 of these.
It's not JavaScript 30 minutes. No, I like that idea.
You know what I mean?
Because I think that's it's speaking JavaScript. That's the muscle I'd like to build.
Good. No,
I can read it quite well.
Great job.
But speaking it,
I can even see it like it keeps track, doesn't it? Like you've got like a little calendar, right?
Level and stuff.
That is really
because
good.
this is what I was looking for. Because HackerRank and LeetCode, at first glance, seemed a bit too verbose and quite difficult. Even like the easy ones I looked at and thought, what? Whereas I wanted something that was like a 5-year-old could start at. So I could just start at the bottom and then find my level.
Let's look at other difficulties. So we're definitely. But I'm wondering like how far can we go? Like go medium, right, or something like that. Let's see how much more difficult they go.
Let's have a look at this one.
Oh, hello. This create a function that takes a number step as an argument and returns the amount of matchsticks in that step. Interesting. Oh man, this is good. Oh, that is interesting, isn't it? Oh, these are proper puzzles. Let's have a look at another one. That's good.
Yeah. On medium again?
Yeah.
Oh no, that was easy. Christ.
That was easy, was it? Jeez.
Yeah. So this one looks like it would be harder.
Right. Convert a number to base 2. Create a function that brings base 2 binary representation. So return. Right. So this includes understanding of binary numbers. I guess something you haven't even looked at yet, right?
No.
Right. Yeah.
But I could figure it out.
Frankly, I mean, now that we're looking at this particular example, you rarely use this kind of knowledge, but it's interesting they put it here. So it'll be fun. Like it'll be fun that you would look at a question like this, tinker about it for a bit. Obviously, Google, like by all means, try to Google like how do I convert a base 10 decimal to binary. Like if you never came across a concept, right? Definitely you want to help yourself with your research skills. So this is also testing that, definitely. But with some of the other ones, like also try to focus on just pushing ahead with just whatever knowledge you have. Write a function redundant that takes in a string and returns a function that returns a string. Huh. Oh, that's funny. Does that make sense?
Not on initial looking, but
enough.
I'd imagine
it's quite convoluted, actually.
Yeah, but I think I could work that one out. Oh, it says closures as well. Interesting.
Let's see another one from Medium.
Yeah, let's try that one.
Given a total due and an array representing the amount of change in your pocket, determine whether you are not you're able to pay for the item. Change will always be represented in the following order: quarters, dimes, nickel, pennies. All right. Yeah, so you can tell that there is definitely like a definite increase of difficulty here. But just at a glance, it's a wonderful page, man.
Yeah, no, I like it. Yeah, I accept the challenge. And I think, just doing a few, because, they're quite easy to do. They're quite easy reps. That's the word I'm looking for. So if we're looking at this in the gym analogy, or I never know what the word is, but
fair enough,
these will be good, easy reps to do rather than me picking up the biggest weights every morning and going, I don't like it, this is crap, I hate the gym.
Well, when you think about it, the exercise you just did, the random questions generator and preventing them from repeating themselves, this could have easily been on medium, not on very easy, that's for sure.
Yeah, but I guess I had someone else behind me doing spotting, going, "Oh, this is what you could do, mate." As in my mate Stack Overflow. Whereas, this will help build my muscle to do it on my own.
Definitely.
But,
no, I mean, no.
So all right, I'm definitely happy with that.
Do Stack Overflow things if you've never heard of them, like this binary stuff. So that's fair. But as much as you can. This would be a good like burn down metric. Like the moment you reach 3 consecutive days when you can like do all 5 exercises in the morning within the first whatever you said, like 20 minutes, like the moment you probably reach that state, that's an easy, like a clear indication you're ready to jump to the next level. So it would be also a very good way to track your progress, seeing, okay, well, if you had a calendar or like some sort of like a Google sheet where day by day you'd be writing down how many you managed to get in those 20 minutes out of the 5 you're trying, then you'd get a very clear indication of your growth, of your progress, of your, where are you at the time.
Wicked.
Right? And
I love a bit of tracking.
Good man. Well done. Yeah, well done finding this, mate. Like that is a solid, good tool for learning coding. Bro, like you should definitely do a longer story about this once you get to do these. Yeah.
Well, they'll be a part of my routine for the next couple of days, weeks, whatever. So
yeah. Well, cool. if there is problems with that routine, if you find that it troubles you in some way, stresses you, it like is difficult for you, some way that destroys the remainder of your day, voice that problem and like let's talk about that as well. Yeah, it has to be.
It should be all right. Should be all right because I'll find my level, and also like these are just pockets of challenges, whereas if I'm building on an app, there's multiple pockets of challenges within a big challenge, if that makes sense.
It does.
Which is a bit more stressful because if I can't work out a function, that means the app doesn't work. Whereas if I can't work out a function here, doesn't matter. I'll just go to the next one.
To another one,
Yeah, cool. Awesome.
Cool, man. I think we can be wrapping up.
Yeah, I'm happy.
So
thank you for your code review and tips.
Perfect, man. Yeah, good.
And the next little challenge. Yeah.
And we did avoid getting too deep into fixing your code, which I'm happy, because that's one thing that we spoke about last time. Like not spending too much time just like fixing tiny bits. Like, you know, I'm glad we touched on that, some of that CSS and some of that random logic.
Yeah.
I will, you know, do what I said. I'll bring up those points I had about that particular function and how you could think of simplifying it. So it's something you can maybe tinker about in the back of your head. But seems that, you know, next couple of weeks, we're looking to switch your focus from building apps into logic.
Building the guns.
Yeah. I could put it this way.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it makes sense, mate. Wicked. Yeah.
Good. Right. So you're happy to just, do that for whatever it is, not a week, not a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And next catch up, we'll just be reviewing this. And when we're there, we'll see how you tackle that and maybe try to lay another app for you to build after that. So we kind of have variety going on there as well.
Yep. Absolutely fine with that, mate. No, appreciate the guidance and support as ever.
Bro, really good progress. I think you should be really proud of yourself. Things you're writing on Instagram as well, I keep on reading them. Very, very interesting thoughts. And especially that bit you said about building the intuition that we spoke about. Yeah, that's solid. You know, you seeing that there. Great job. So pat yourself on your back and just, keep on pushing, man. Like it's definitely getting closer and closer, and keep on finding things that you enjoy about it. That's also very key, right? Having part of coding that you want to go back to on a Sunday evening, that's super important. But there is also some, you know, just bulking out and having to do the reps, you know, so there's a bit of both.
No, I'm still enjoying it, because like I said, even that week where I went 3 or 4 days with no progress to show, I was still loving, because I was it was like an actual, I can't even, because I was swearing loads because I thought I cracked it and then it wouldn't work, and I'd be like, oh no, but then it must be this, and then I go and do that, and that was like, oh no, well if that doesn't work, it was like it, but I knew I was close, so it was enjoyable. It was like a bit of cat and mouse. Whereas if you know you're not close, it's not enjoyable. But
true.
I'm you know, the fact that I'm getting up every day and have done for, what am I on now? Day 67. Plus I probably did it for about 100 days before that.
Yeah.
You know, I probably had 10 days off ever. I'm still getting up every day, and you know, if I wasn't enjoying it, I'd have given up ages ago. So
good man.
Yeah, loving it, mate. Loving it.
Well done. Right, bro. That'll be it for today. Good call. And let's just follow up with what we said, and I suppose I catch you sometime next week or sometime after.
Wicked. Yeah. Okay then, mate. You can stop the video now, and then I'll say a proper goodbye.
Okay, sure.